Well, Spencer Thomas, we're back for another episode of On That Note. I don't know if you remember, but you were the very first guest I had in person on this show in 2.5 years of doing it at the time. And now it's 3.5 years.
That's right.
And you're back.
Do you know exactly what day that was?
I know it was like November of last year, but I don't know the exact day.
Well, now it's November of the year before that, right?
Well, it's January.
Is that correct? It's January of 24.
Yeah.
So it was November.
So it was like 14 months ago.
Yeah.
Is when we did the last episode. Maybe it was December. I can't remember.
That's like a pretty steadily growing baby, 14 months.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
We should start thinking about that in terms of babies.
Mm-hmm.
Time passed. But yeah, I'm always appreciative of that because sometimes in life I need somebody to just kick me and make something happen.
Mm-hmm.
And you were the one that were like, okay, when are we doing this? Like, set it up. Let's go. And I'm like, okay, I guess we're making it happen. And I haven't looked back since. I love doing the in-person ones.
Yeah.
Having somebody sit across from me.
Yeah.
It's just a lot more personal,
mm-hmm.
you know? So I'm happy to have you back. I'm happy to have another Bruce album up here. Darkness on the Edge of Town. If you're
mm-hmm.
listening to the podcast, you can watch us on YouTube as well. See our faces, see the boss's face here. What made you pick Darkness on the Edge of Town? There's probably almost every classic Bruce album in there, and you chose this one.
I chose this one because I have a very, very specific story tied to this. This was it was either very close to right at the beginning of the pandemic or just before. This is the first time I tripped on mushrooms.
Oh.
Yeah. So this was after I released my first record, and then I did some heavy touring on that in 2019. I don't know if you have this feeling, but after you release a set of songs, you go, I'm out of songs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's next?
Totally.
And is that it for me? Is that all I'm going to make?
Right.
And so I wanted to reach for the divine and try to pull some inspiration out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was picking up some shifts at the liquor store I used to work at in Jackson, earning money, knowing that I was going to eventually move to Athens within the summer before I knew anything about a worldwide pandemic.
So is this 2019?
This is very beginning of 2020. I'm going to say like February 2020.
Okay.
Yeah. Very, very much like maybe we saw something about COVID-19 on the news and thought,
right.
Oh, that's like the swine flu or whatever.
Yes.
You know? And I had a friend at work who had these mushroom chocolates that he was selling, and he was like, oh man, this would be really great, and I think it would be really inspirational for you. And I said, okay, I'll take 2 of those, please. And I took 2 of those, and I went back to my house. I was living with my parents at the time in Jackson, Mississippi. And I said, Dad, I'm about to trip on mushrooms upstairs. just straight
Don't
up.
bother me.
Like my parents are like, I'm pretty transparent with my parents.
That's
know?
great.
And like my mom had already gone to bed, and I was like, Dad, I'm about to trip upstairs. I just want to let you know. If anything weird happens, I'll let you know. Like I'm just, straight up. Like I don't want to freak out and not be able to tell anybody. So I just went ahead and told him straight away.
That's a good plan.
And so what I did was I took 6 records, it was 5 or 6 records. I can't even remember what the last 3 were because my peak moment ended on record 3, which was Darkness on the Edge of Town. So I took the first mushroom chocolate and I was like, whoa. And I don't know if you've ever had mushrooms before.
Definitely not. No.
Okay. Well,
definitely not.
This is starting to fade on me.
Sorry, that microphone stand might.
It's okay. I'll squeeze it. Okay.
There we go.
So,
in case my parents were listening.
In case your well,
plead the fifth.
As you know that, as I told you, I'm pretty transparent with my family, so they're aware of this. So if you are listening, Dad, thanks for being my support system.
Shout out.
So first album I listened to was Well, let me explain. I had a record player. I had a sleeping bag, and I had like an eye mask and big headphones, and I just plugged my headphones directly into the record player.
Sick.
And so I was really trying to reach for something. You know? So I was listening to Tom Waits' Nighthawks at the Diner, which was like
Cool. Yeah.
live. It was kind of this settling in, but eating mushrooms is kind of like you have an anxiety feeling that sort of ramps up in you at first. And so I was starting to feel this way. And I stopped and I texted my buddy Wes, and I was like, hey, like, you know, I'm feeling real anxious. He's like, it's all good. It's all good. You're just getting ready for the ride.
Right.
Go ahead and take that other chocolate and just lean in. And I said, okay. And then I picked Elvis Costello. It's the record with all the elephants on the front.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But I don't know the name of it.
It's the one that ends with Peace, Love, and Understanding. What's so funny about Peace, Love, and Understanding? Song by Nick Lowe. It's one of my favorites.
Oh, that's not his?
No.
Wow. I always thought it was Elvis Costello's.
Yeah, but Nick Lowe and Elvis Costello, they're like, you know,
okay.
Nick Lowe will cover Allison at a live set.
Got you. That's cool.
So they're pretty intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
But near the end of, like, on the back side of that record and going into Peace, Love, and Understanding, I started to feel like the euphoria. Like, as my eyes were closed, all of the instruments, it was like I was standing in the middle of this dark tower, and all of the instruments were pounding with different colors. Like the keys were purple, and like the drums were a series of green and orange, you know. This is just for example.
Yeah.
And they were all aligning with the noise that they were making. So I was like, all right, I'm onto something. And so I said, it's time for this record. And the best way I was able to put it, listening to this record, it was like I was wrestling a tiger out of my veins. Like I was just like, ah! So just listening to this record and being in that level of, I don't know, a spiritual openness, this will always stick with me in such a way, and I will remember listening to this in that time period.
Wow.
So
I had no idea there was such a deep psychological and mental, emotional connection to this album.
Yeah.
Darkness on the Edge of Town. And fun, I feel bad almost because that's such a great story, and this is literally the Bruce album I know the least, I think. I know Badlands. I sort of know Adam Raised a Cain.
Mm-hmm.
Prove It All Night, Darkness on the Edge of Town, but that's really all I know. That's like only half the album.
Yeah.
Were there some songs that maybe freaked you out at first? Because there's some creepy ones on here. Maybe not creepy, but dark.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, literally.
Darkness, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I could tell from that it came from a place of this angst and, you know, just... And I think that I could relate to it at the time. You know, I'm assuming that. I mean, you know, Badlands is I know, talking about like working in his dad's garage, and you know, none of that stuff was true. He never worked in a garage, but he just, you know, it's always about escaping something, and I feel like he was always talking about escaping, like this darkness on the edge of town, this like feeling of needing to leave and go somewhere else, and that is what Bruce had going on, and this feeling was very aligned with what I had going on in my life at the time, you know, thinking, all right, I've set a goal to move to a new town, and I wanted some inspiration to draw for making another record because I wanted to, you know, I wanted to make a new record. I wanted to move to Athens. I wanted to, you know, get tight with some of the labels that are in town, and I wanted to just move on to the next chapter. But I could feel that feeling of like, It is. It's like you're wrestling with the former self, the self that you're used to, and trying to break into the new version of self. And so I'm not sure if that's what he was trying to get to in this record, but that's what I took from it in that moment.
Yeah. So you're on the other side of this experience now.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel like you're different, and maybe you've approached music different, both songwriting and maybe from a career mindset since tripping to Darkness at the Edge of Town?
Well, I definitely feel less lonesome, and knowing how, and I mean, it may also be for my own cause, I mean, I think I broke away from my friendships and musical relationships in Mississippi because I knew that I personally needed to move on. And so doing that and deciding that is a pretty lonely experience, I mean, moving on to a new chapter of yourself is a lonely experience because only you get to experience it.
Whoa. That's so true.
Yeah. It's something that my dad has always said, you live with you for the rest of your life. Yeah. Your. It's always, and that's not to say that people will not be there with you for certain lengths of time on your journey. It's not to say that you will do it alone, but there are plenty of things that you will just have to decide and do for yourself. And so when I did decide to make that transition, it was a lonely journey. Now I feel like I am very well settled in. I do have a great and strong friend group. I have met all of those people that I wanted to set out and meet. And, because of that, I just completed a deal with Strolling Bones, and the first single, Desperate Man, which might be a little reminiscent of the beat from Badlands, just a touch.
Just honoring the boss.
Just honoring the boss. It's definitely, Desperate Man is definitely honoring the boss. And, I have taken a moment to reflect at the end of 2023 in moving into 2024 and thinking like, all right, it's been about 3.5 years. Was that 42 months?
Yeah, I think so. I was thinking about how many baby 9-month periods would that be?
That's
It's at least 4.
That's an angsty toddler.
Yeah.
So I have lived in Athens for an angsty toddler's age.
Gotcha.
Now, and to look back and reflect and go, okay, I have pretty much accomplished a lot of the things that I set out to do originally, and really I'm now in a place where it's not me just kind of reaching for this goal and just seeing what happens. Now it's like, all right, I'm in a spot where I'm just building and propelling myself forward. Where that leads, I'm not quite sure yet, but I know
the foundation is there now.
Yeah, the foundation, moving from one place to the other, settling in and starting to just build.
I think Strolling Bones, signing with them, makes sense for that to be a bit of a checkpoint within this journey that you've been on since you moved here. What's that been like since you've been with them? Because over the last 6 months, every once in a while we would see each other and you'd kind of fill me in on how that was going. And now it's cool to have you on to be able to talk about it because you have announced that you've signed with them. You have released your first single with them, Desperate Man. So maybe you can take us, the listeners, back to day one, before you signed with them, right when the conversation started, and take us up until this point.
Yeah, sure. Well, shout out to Drew Beskin, the manager of everyone.
Friend of the pod.
Yeah. I'm going to go have brunch with Drew right after this at Big City Bread. So it was us setting up for Athfest and me really getting a solid idea of what it would be like to have an actual full band in this town. And he's like, all right, I'm going to get you the first slot on the main stage on Friday. It's going to be early enough. I'm going to get George Sr. out. I'm going to get the Strolling Bones team out. I'm going to annoy the shit out of them and make sure that they show up. And he's like, just get the band together, get a tight 30. And that's what we did. We played 8 songs in 30 minutes, and I was just like,
wow.
Next one.
No talking.
I was like, no talking. I was like, I got work to do, so we're going to keep playing songs. And, I mean, I had Andrew McFarlane on drums. I had Ryan Engelberger on bass, both of them singing backup vocals. I had Ben Hackett with auxiliary percussion and saxophone, also singing a little bit as well. Drew was kind of playing the opposite of me, playing keys when I was playing guitar when I was playing keys, also singing background vocals. And then I had Lars Hefner playing guitar, lead guitar. And so I had built this super band, and we gave a great sweaty performance in the middle of a Friday, 5 o'clock, right after everybody was just off work and starting we kicked off Athfest.
Literally, yeah.
And, so because of that, it wasn't like a hugely attended thing. Maybe by the end of it, we maybe gathered 100 people in that area. But that didn't really matter because side stage was George Sr. and Lee Rixey, who also works for Strolling Bones. And I went over and, in the midst of that, like hopped off stage, feeling the euphoria of playing a good show, as you know how that feels, just, feeling like the strongest and most present version of yourself. I hop off stage and I shake George's hand. Heard his name a million times. First time I ever met him was right at that moment, which was perfect for me, I think. And he said, let's have a meeting, sometime next week.
Just like that.
Just like that. And former me, tripping on mushrooms, listening to Darkness on the Edge of Town me, would have just been floored by that experience, because I think when I think about people, when I think about labels and I see artists who I want to follow in the footsteps of, who are on a label that I think would be appropriate for me, I always feel like it's out of touch, or I think like, oh, they get people saying something like this all the time. They get people reaching out all the time being like, oh, listen to my record, listen to my songs. And so to have somebody who has worked with so many artists like that and say, let's get a meeting together, that felt like a very pivotal moment. And we started meeting, and then they sent the basic deal, and I know you like to have some advice that you like to give out for your listeners, so this is in the advice
ding
column.
Ding, check in, everybody.
Of course, we start talking about masters, because labels, they will take part ownership of these masters. For the most part, that's kind of a standard thing. And so when I saw that in the email, that's when I started to freak out. I was like, all my dreams are coming true. And then I saw that email and I was like, whoa,
this is real.
This is real. This is where the realness steps in. And what I found so great about Strolling Bones is that they were willing to have as many meetings with me and answer as many questions as possible. They paid for Drew and I for our lawyer fee, so we could work with our friend John on this to read through the contract and tell us everything that we needed to know. And you know, you want to make sure that you hire somebody who can read what it is, because you know, maybe the label has the greatest of intentions, but when you start looking at a contract, it's legalese, you know.
Right.
It's I tried to read it myself. I really did, and I was able to interpret some things and highlight some points that I wanted to ask about, but for the most part, after about 7 or 8 pages, my brain was fried.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Which is what it's meant to do.
Right.
You know? And it's, you know, George could probably not fully tell me what was on that contract. It is between two lawyers to interpret the language of the contract.
Mm-hmm.
and not duke it out, but you know, just like in some ways they're like, well, what about this?
Right.
What about this? And the rest of us are like, well, let's just see what they say.
Yeah.
You know? So
yeah,
it is funny.
It.
It took a few months because it was Drew and I talking to our lawyer,
mm-hmm.
and then our lawyer talking to their lawyer, and then their lawyer maybe talking to them and then responding. And then it was just the lawyers talking. And, you know, I'm like, all right, well, this is how a deal works.
Mm-hmm.
I come to find out. But I was so thankful to have John on the team to help me make sense of what we were getting into. And, you know, also George and Lee willing to sit in a room with me and, you know, and they were like, well, what do you want to talk about? And I said, honestly, I just want to meet with you and talk with you and get to know you both. And Stacy Cook as well, who I started meeting with a little later. But I just wanted to get familiar with them because, you know, my first instinct was, these are lovely people. I feel like this will be a good fit, but I wanted to be sure because once all the contract stuff came up, it's just a lot scarier, just generally speaking. So, I just asked to get in the room with them and just get comfortable and just talk. And, you know, and now we're past handshakes. It's all, we come in the room, we hug, we joke, we curse, we, you know, and we tell stories. And also in the midst of that, we get work done. We talk about what is to come. But they truly have the best of intentions in just trying to propel my career. And I don't know about how you work on your own music, but we may have talked about before as a solo artist, it's kind of hard to get your own gears going or get your kite flying because it is just you. And so with a team around me reminding me that this thing needs to be done, I have more of a motivation and going like, the team's counting on me.
Sure.
Let's do it, you know? And that comes with making music and going like, all right, well, if I'm going to do another record with them, then I need to write some songs, you know? And I am so thankful for the opportunity because they are giving me the chance to get my music more heard and for me to have the resources to make more of it.
Yeah.
And you know, and they have part ownership in it. They have part stake in it. And so they are wanting to do the work to help move that forward. But the big takeaway from it really was just, you know, making sure that you talk thoroughly with someone who can read a contract with you. And even if it's people that you feel like have the best intentions, and all of it turned out to be great, but you want to make sure that you really know what you're getting into thoroughly.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially when it comes to legalese contracts where you don't quite know how to even read what you're signing. And that makes sense. Hire somebody who spent, 10 years in school to be able to do that. And what I'm curious about is, I feel like a lot of people who, like me, have not been on a label and are very curious about what that's like. I'm wondering, before you were with a label, what were your thoughts about what that would look like, what they would help you with, what you wanted them to help you with, what you wanted that relationship to be? What were some of the ideas you had before, and then the reality of what it is, and how much did those line up?
I would say so far it's lining up pretty realistically with my interpretation of it. And I'm so lucky to be a 7-minute drive away from the office.
Yeah, that
to where
rules.
I can just pop in and say, "Hello, I have a question." But I would say in the process of this, once we signed, once George and I, we have a picture of George and I holding up pens because we both brought our own pen to the, we brought our own pen to the actual signing meeting because, I don't know, there's something special about having your own pen to sign.
That's cool.
And I will say, this speaks in volumes of George as a character and as a person. He turned to me right before we signed. Right, we're standing up. Drew's taking photos like a proud mom, and George said, "Spencer, if we're not having a good time, then I don't know what else to do." And if I was already going to sign, but if I needed another boost, that was a good enough reason for me. But what I was not expecting was to have such a familial connection with this team, where it felt very easygoing. So it's honestly better than I really interpreted beforehand. I think like a label feels so businessy, and you go, all right, this is the label, and you think more of a suit and tie affair when it's a lot more casual than that. I'm trying to think about, my expectation was, there was somebody who was trained and well experienced in handling the dirty work of your releases. That means getting your stuff set up to be on streaming platforms and playlists and distributed properly, and having it updated on your website, and all of the things where you have to remember 1,000 passwords, and where you go and update this and that, and somebody who's just there to remind you to do this stuff. That was what my hopes were. My hopes were that someone would take the load off of, not only do I have to create the art and pay for the art, but then I also have to do all the footwork to make sure that somebody hears the art. And luckily, I can send it off and they know exactly what to do. And they have, oh, you're good. And they have the platform to do it. And so I'd been curious for a long time. I'm like, labels mean a whole different thing now. What could it do for me? But I now understand that if they're going to take a portion of whatever I make off of, streaming or publishing or whatever the case may be, but they're doing all the work to get me there, then a percentage of something is better than 100% of nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Shout out to Drew for saying that, because I've kept that one in my mind.
Shout out to Drew. He's always dropping gems. That's why I like having him on here.
Yeah.
So it sounds like this really worked out better than you could have imagined.
Yes, really. And it's the concept of knowing these people and understanding their intentions and knowing that here we are with the resources to help you get to work. All you got to do is do the work. And that is the way that I function. I'm like high functioning deadline person. If I'm going to make a record, I better book some studio dates.
Yeah.
Then I'll write some songs.
Yeah.
And that might be good for somebody who has a hard time getting started, a hard time really kicking yourself into motivating. Like, the only way I practice is if I have a show. The only way I write is if I am making another record. The only way I will prepare myself to record is if I have studio dates booked. It's just like, that's the way that
you got
I
to
am.
set up the thing at the end to get to.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, where are you going?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I can't just blindly practice. Some people can.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
I have a hard time with that. But if I know, like for Futurebirds, if we got a tour coming up and we're like, hey, we want to try to get these covers off, or we want to try to play these old songs, then I'll be like, okay,
something to work on.
I got a goal in mind. I'm a to-do list guy. I'm a checklist guy. Like, if I don't have anything to do, if I don't have a set appointment during the day, then I got a checklist to back up what I need to accomplish. So I can sit down at the end of my day and go, all right, I didn't just run around in a flustered, anxious shitstorm and not quite get anything done.
Right. So what does that look like with songwriting? Are you sitting down and saying, I want to write a song about this, or I want to challenge myself to write a song with 4 chords? How does that look when you're writing and getting creative, setting boundaries for yourself?
Well, sometimes the box that you build can be your greatest inspiration, like you said, limit to 4 chords. That's a cool idea. Mm-hmm. 'Cause at least you know where your boundary is. If you're boundaryless, if it's unlimited, it's kind of limited.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It's very stifling.
Yeah. Yeah. I like having song titles.
Oh, okay.
If I have a good title, I get the song.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've pulled song titles out of other people's lyrics.
Now I'm thinking about all of your songs and I'm like, yeah, each song title, I can see how that could be what came first before anything.
Yeah. That way, when I feel like everybody has a bit of like the verse 2 blues.
Oh, yeah, totally. And I just don't want to write verse 2s. I just try to skip it.
The verse 2 or the bridge. It's like everyone's like, if I could just have a 1 verse and a chorus, that'd be great.
That'd be awesome.
But honestly, if you said everything you need to say, sing verse 1 again.
Mm-hmm. People do it all the time.
Who cares? And then it's easy for everyone else to remember, and then they're excited to listen to it because they already know all the words.
True, yeah.
Do
one even better. Cut that second verse in half.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's even less.
Yeah, exactly. So for example, Desperate Man, while we're talking about it, Desperate Man is, I think I ripped Desperate Man from Lawyers, Guns, and Money, Warren Zevon. I think somewhere in verse 2, he said, like, I'm a desperate man. And I was like, desperate man. I like that. And I took that and wrote it faster, and I wanted more of like a kind of like punky Elvis Costello thing.
Uh-huh.
And then I slowed it down and did a more Badlands thing. And this was one of those songs that I wrote where I like time limits. For any assignment that I have at home, whether it's like fill out your calendar with everything that you have this month, or, instead of me just saying I have all afternoon to do this, I'm like, you have 40 minutes to do it. So I like to do that with a song. If I have the title at the top of the page, or if I just sit down with an open journal and guitar, I'll just set a timer for an hour. And you wouldn't believe how much that kicks your gears into, maybe you don't feel inspired that day, but you're going to find something if you give yourself an hour to do it and just say, I'm going to have a completed version of a song, even if it's no good. Just doing it is the whole point. You get the practice, and maybe the whole song is trash. Maybe one line is gold, but it's enough to get the gears turning to where the next day you might actually feel inspired, but you got the mechanics down, so
right.
You can grab that.
You're limbered up.
Yeah. And you're not so daunted by the inspiration where you're like, oh, I don't know what to do. So I would like to make this more of a daily practice, but I'm always traveling. I'm a little scattered. So if anything, I'm willing to write something down, whether it's just a line, a page, a song title, sing a little voice memo, but it's just the act of putting something down, even if it's no good. I've written more trash songs than I've written good songs.
Yeah.
But I don't look at them as trash songs. I look at them as like, I've gone back and listened to old demos and realized, oh, those were the chords that eventually ended up being this song that's on my next record, or that line I stole to put into this better song.
Right.
They all lead somewhere.
Do you ever have moments where you feel like you've written the same line like 5 songs deep? Like you've written the same, and then in my mind it's like, oh, you can't write that again, but it's like no one's heard the other 5 versions of this. You can write it once it's out, then maybe think about redoing it if something sounds too similar. But nobody's heard these 5 other demos that have the same line.
Yeah. Or I'm like, oh, I always say this. I always go to this. And and that might just be the ways that you like to write. And that's okay. I think that if you say something that sounds similar to you, then you're probably figuring out your own style, your own way of writing.
True.
And that's good.
Absolutely.
So look at that more as a win than a loss.
Yeah. You're like figuring out your voice in real time. But I don't know, something about it, you almost want to sabotage yourself. So you're like, oh, now I'm so familiar with these themes I always cover, or the way I say things. It's like, how many artists and bands do you listen to that have a couple songs that, they say almost the same thing, might be slightly different, but who cares? You don't even think about it.
Yeah. I mean, there's some, like Springsteen, for example. Yeah. There's a lot of dark. There's a lot of night. There's a lot of run.
Totally.
Which is just, if you read his Born to Run autobiography, it makes a whole lot of sense just with the way he is as a person. So and that's okay. You know, people aren't looking at 2 songs and going like, oh, well, this just sounds like this song. He's written hundreds of songs. Well, he's probably written thousands of songs.
Yeah.
But he's put out hundreds of songs, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference. I mean, I think it's just putting your reps in, you know? It's not, it's like going to the gym. You know, some days you don't feel as strong. Some days you're having a hard time getting through the workout. But you put your rep in, you know, you did your time. And that's what I think about when I set that hour timer. I go, let's see what comes together. And if nothing comes of it, if it's total trash, I can at least feel accomplished knowing that if I call myself a songwriter, I tried today.
Sure.
You know?
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
I just started going to quote unquote a songwriters club. It's kind of online, but it's my friend in Atlanta who brought some people together to essentially hold each other accountable every week to upload by Thursday at midnight a song that you've written that week. And the motto of the club is done is better than what is it? Done is better than perfect, I guess, because we have this idea that you need to write like the song right now, you know, your favorite song. Mm-hmm. You have to write it right now. But if you have such a high bar, then there's a good chance you might not ever hit it, and then you don't have any songs. So at least set the bar to a point where you can get there, and then you can always polish it and be more of a critic later. But like, let yourself have the experience of writing something first. It's not going to come out perfect.
Yeah.
You know, and that's really helped, having that motivation, one, to get something done, a deadline, and then knowing that other people are going to be not only listening to your thing that you may not feel 100% about, but they're having the courage and the bravery to post something that might be kind of scary for them as well.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're all in this together.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm. And it's just keeping the creative wheels turning. And I think that the more you try to strive for perfection, the more it feels like work. And you have to tap into the creative world, like edit like the adult that you are, but create like the kid that you were before. Like, just, you know, kids don't think I have to draw the perfect picture. They just start fucking drawing. They just take every crayon out and they don't care, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, you gotta treat it like that.
Yeah.
And I've actually found myself leaning more into songs that I want to explore more of the, like the record that I'm about to release is called The Joke of Life. And because while there are still some heartbreaky tunes, there's a little more exploration in story and concept, and a little more of a universal feeling as opposed to just like me and my feelings. And I'm starting to lean more into, you know, everything for me is feeling pretty good, like pretty stable, pretty normal. I'm not like tight on money, or, you know, I have a stable romantic relationship. I have stable friendships. I'm not making some huge jump like I did 3 years ago. So, you know, I don't have any like sad things to write about, really. So I'm exploring songs that have more of like a, you know, a nudge and a wink to it, because I think that if you can, I don't know, there's a lot of hurt in the songwriter world, you know?
Yeah.
This is about somebody who treated me bad. This is about somebody who I treated bad, you know? And so a lot of a lot of heartbreak, a lot of depression. And I'm not saying that that is a totally shut off topic, but I'm just saying that that's where a lot of my songs have come from.
Sure.
So I'm trying to explore what is maybe a little more lighthearted, or what is a story that I can write about somebody else and completely pull myself out of the picture. And that's been exciting to me, is to just actually leave this topic I'm so familiar with off of the table completely and go, how about you lean into this direction and, see where it takes you. And so that's made me feel a little more like a kid again, playing a song and being like, oh, listen to this. This is fun.
That's so sick.
Yeah.
Because I also feel like that would be kind of a fun thing to challenge myself with. It's easy to dig deep into these, emotional pits you may have, but it's almost harder to try to write a song from the perspective of some character that you met at a grocery store or, for example, just something random. And if you try that, at least you've, tried a new perspective on songwriting, and you might not think that that's for you all the time, but maybe you've learned or you've gleaned a little bit of inspiration for a song later down the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Out of these few new songs, is there one that sticks out to you in terms of like the one you're the most proud of, whether that's because of the process you took or just the way it came out in the final recording?
There are a few. I worked on this record a long time, pretty much the entire time that I've been in Athens. Really on and off, touring a lot with Futurebirds, but I would say the bulk of the songs were written in 2020 or early 2021, when I was in that pandemic level, living at my parents' house, waking up every day, setting a timer with a cup of coffee and an acoustic guitar and saying, write a song, a lot of those songs came from that. And a handful of them came from when I first moved into town, and I didn't really have much else going on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, still like masks and people getting to-go food from the front door of a restaurant. And so besides sitting outside of somebody's backyard with my friends here in town, I didn't really have a whole lot of socializing that I could do, which benefited me creatively because I had a lot. I was able to gather a lot of material. And so when I first moved to town, I was very anxious and trying to, all those goals that I talked about having, like tripping, listening to Springsteen, Spencer. That's what we'll call that version of me. When you move to a new place, you kind of want all of that stuff to happen at once. And I wasn't looking at the simple things like, just building my IKEA bookshelf or just trying to like get myself in order, work on my personal self, as opposed to like launching forward, because nobody does. You move to a new place, you settle in, you get to know people, and it's always a slow burn, and it's always better because of it. But I remember thinking about all of this stuff before going to bed and feeling terribly anxious. And so I started falling asleep to the sleep sounds. I had this, I would turn on this rain, and I had this, it's like Better Sleep. It's an app that you can use. Shout out Better Sleep, I guess.
Sponsor the pod.
Yeah, sponsor the pod. And you could customize it. You could have rain sound. You could even incorporate like light traffic or a distant train.
Light traffic sounds like a nightmare. Who's choosing traffic?
I don't know. I mean, it's like, or you can just have like cars going by and stuff, depending on what you're used to.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting. And when I would fall asleep, I go like, oh, it's another night, sleeping to the sound of fake rain. And I was like, fake rain. That's nice. I like that. I like that title. And so before I went to bed, I grabbed my phone and I just typed in all of the words to this song. I kind of got a little melody going, and I wrote this song about a woman who lives in Portland, Oregon, who's having a very similar experience as me, but not quite the same. How she's like working a full-time job, is not really making friends, hasn't really quite found her group, and doesn't really like dating online. So is spending a lot of time alone, just kind of like smoking weed, looking at her phone, and going to sleep. And everything leads back to the sound of fake rain, Mm-hmm. So I wanted it to all go back to like, this is her day and this is where it ends, right? And like we were talking about in the songwriting process, I had the title, so I knew where each verse was supposed to end.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, well, what's something else I can talk about? I know where it's going to end, And I go back and listen to the song, the way we recorded it, the way it feels sonically. Lars put a ripping guitar solo on that song, like very tasteful and beautiful. And just the way everyone nailed the feel. And we also, in the beginning and end of the song, there's a little rise of field recorded rain and a little fall of it at the end. And so just as a song, as a piece, I'm really, really proud of how it turned out.
That's awesome. And it came from just a random thought that you decided to put in your notes app on your phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And imagine if you were like, I don't know, it's not really good enough. And then you just didn't do it.
Exactly. Yes. And that's the point, is that if you are willing to write songs that fail, then your brain is suddenly open to like, let's write a song about this plant that is hanging in the corner of your room. Mm-hmm. You're so like, game on. I'm ready to do it. Yeah.
And you don't know what, like, something that seems so pointless might end up giving you something so important. Because I mean, just right then you were like, that plant up there. And my first thought was that my ex-girlfriend gave me that plant. I still have it. There's a story right there.
There's a story right there.
You have no idea like what little stories or what deeper connections can come out of something that seems so pointless or small. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we're already approaching an hour, which is awesome. I knew this was going to happen. It's just been effortless talking with you. But let's ask one more question before we go to the last 5. And that would be, within these last few years since tripping to Bruce Springsteen's Darkness at the Edge of Town, what do you think are maybe the top 2 or 3, or maybe one lesson that you've learned about songwriting, about music, and your career in general? What kind of advice would you give yourself back in the day, maybe back in 2020 version of Spencer?
The more weight you put on it, the heavier it gets. And that's just straight up it. I was my last band in Mississippi. I was so heavily weighted by the idea of this has to work that I don't really like the person that I was in that band. I don't really like the way I was acting around everybody else. I feel like ego was really getting the best of me. And so I am thankful for that process, and still made the right choice for me to continue on making my own music, because I wanted to move and shift and live on my own timeline. But I did really feel like we were having adventures together, and I was making it not fun. I was almost set out to make sure that it wasn't a good time, because of how driven I was on making it a successful business. And that could be driven by, you know, my family, or expectations of people around me, or what I thought expectations of people around me were. But really, the more weight you put on it, the heavier it gets. So I'd say, if you want art to be your career, like, let it be lighter, let it be more explorative, and it's okay if it's not your job. Have another job, have another creative outlet. That's fine. Just like, as long as the art doesn't suffer, because that's the whole reason that we're doing this. You know, in my time, I worked at liquor stores. You know, I worked at Jay's.
Oh, really?
I listened to podcasts and stocked the beer cooler before I got the call that the Futurebirds drummer quit, and I was basically interim drummer until I started playing keys in the band. And then the next year I was able to quit lessons, you know. But I taught lessons, and all of it was a good experience for me. But I know that there is a certain grind, and people feel like they totally have to remove themselves and go all in. And that works for some people, you know, to remove all the other things. But like, if you got that coffee shop job, it's okay. It's stable. It's like then you get to have this relationship with, like, I can't wait to finish up the shift and go record.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to be excited, like, as opposed to, this has to work. I quit everything else. I invested so much money in this. This has to work. Like,
it's so much pressure.
Right. Like, give it your time and attention and love, but like, don't. The more weight you put on it, the heavier it gets. This is the third time I've said it.
I mean, imagine doing that to like a partner that you just started dating. Like a month in, you're like, this has to work. And you're like, what? You're done having fun? Like, they're going to hate you and they're going to leave.
Yeah.
Like, why would you do that to the thing that you love to do passionately?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, you know, explore it and go, you know, like my last band, Young Valley in Mississippi, we first tour we did, we went to Seattle and back. We had no business doing that. You know, it's just like, let's just tour the Southeast, you know? And so my approach now, I was like, all right, you know, let's tour. I'm going to play in Athens and Atlanta and Charleston, and then maybe explore a little further. Like, just take it in bites and just enjoy it as it goes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The more weight you put on it, the heavier it gets.
Keep it light, folks.
Yeah.
Keep it light. Well, Spencer, let's take it over to the last 5, where I guess last time you were here, I asked you the questions, but this time we got a bowl.
Oh.
With a bunch of questions.
I love that.
Yeah, it's fun. So we're going to let the universe decide what we're going to ask you today.
My armpits feel sweaty, so I'm trying not to
That's okay.
Fantasy supergroup. Fuck.
We can keep it to like a 4-piece or a 5-piece. Once you start thinking further than that, unless you got it down, ready to go, sometimes it takes a while.
Well, my favorites are... Okay. Yikes. God. Okay. So I'd have Max Weinberg, who was the longtime drummer of Bruce and the E Street Band.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen him do his jukebox
No.
tours? Do you know what that is?
No.
He'll go on these. Sorry, I've already derailed us. We barely started the last 5.
No.
But I think you would enjoy this. He does these like Max's jukebox tours or something like that, where he goes to cities with his band, and then they have like 200 songs, cover songs, including Bruce songs, that the audience can like request. And he'll just, every night, different show, he'll just play whatever is requested by the audience.
Cool.
And I've seen him do it twice, and it's really awesome because, you know, there's like, of course, Bruce Springsteen songs, but then there's probably a Warren Zevon song. There's, you know, Beatles songs and Stones songs and everything in between. It's really cool.
Wow.
But anyway, yeah. So
Cool.
he would be awesome. Max Weinberg on drums.
Yeah. And also, I want to ask, is this a fantasy group that you are building for yourself?
Yeah, if that's easier.
That is easier. That's one less
So
person.
you're the front. That's true. So you're the front man.
If I were like singing and playing songs, you know, then I would want, then I'd have Max on drums. I like to have Waddy Wachtel, who was a longtime guitar player for Zevon and Linda Ronstadt, and many more, session player, LA, you know, late 70s and on. Bass player Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
Straight.
Dude, why not?
Straight up, you know. Also, he would, you know, he's got a few good songs himself, and you know, a great singer. He'd be great on the background. And,
One of the best bassists.
I mean, yeah,
Like
really,
truly.
yeah.
I had a
so
student
melodic.
yesterday or 2 days ago wanted to learn Here Comes the Sun on bass. And we're listening to it. I'm like, how did he could have done the simplest thing on such a simple, pretty song, and he's still like doing these crazy riffs that did not need to be in there, but still go hard.
And he acts like it's nothing.
Yeah.
He acts like it's these universally understood songs, and his bass parts, he's like, oh yeah, just wrote a song.
You're like, yeah, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, just bass. You know? Yeah. Effortless, melodic, tone to the max.
Tone is crazy. Yeah. So
yeah.
you got Max Weinberg, Paul McCartney, Waddy Wachtel. Is that his name?
Yes. Waddy Wachtel, yeah, good memory. Let's see.
So that
Pulling
covers a
from
lot
the-
of bases right there.
Yeah. You know.
You trying to think of one more?
I think I'm okay. Now I want, pulling from the E Street Band one more time, I want Clarence Clements on saxophone.
Yeah.
Woof. I mean, and you know, and then like I want like Tom Waits' craziness on the keys. Just like his just like wild outside ideas. It would be, I mean, I'm trying to do it quick, but I think that's a pretty cool, strange group.
Yeah, that's pretty solid too. You were
Yeah.
able to come up with like 6 people. And usually it takes people a while to come up with even 3. Tom Waits though, that's interesting because I'm trying to get into him. I have for a time. I do enjoy the first record. I always try to get into, what is it? Swordfish Trombone. And that is just, it's too Muppets for me. Like,
fair.
it's hard for me to get into that. I kind of liked, is it Too Gone? Or it was like a 2004 album he put out that's just Red. Do you know what I'm talking about? I like that one, but I'm wondering for you, what's a good entry point? What got you into him?
Closing Time got me into him.
Was that the first album?
I don't know if it's his first album, but it's somewhere early.
Okay.
You know, my buddy Cody Rogers was telling me that Tom Waits always liked to dress in a suit, you know, so he always wanted to be like Frank Sinatra early on. And you could tell, like, in the way that his ballads were written. And so, like, Closing Time is very reminiscent of that. If you listen to The Heart of Saturday Night, I believe I think that's what the album's called. Yeah, but Heart of Saturday Night has some great songs on it. San Diego Serenade is like my cry song, you know?
Okay.
Rosie is a great song that's on Closing Time. Yeah, I mean, I've definitely, I understand. Muppets is a great word. Yeah, Swordfish Trombones. Yeah, is like, yeah, he gets pretty wild later on, but like some of the earlier stuff is just like very classic piano.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Closing Time, that will be the one to check out. Okay, cool. I'll save that for later. But let's see what question number 2 is.
All right. Fantasy group answer.
Also, you didn't do it, but please don't rip these little pieces of paper. My guests really like to do that. Just they fidget with it and it ends up breaking.
Underrated artist at the moment. We've definitely had a conversation about this group in general, but I think, you know, as far as the rap world, there is a lot of light that is not shining on Griselda.
Yeah, I forgot you're a big Griselda fan, which is so like shocking just if you don't know you.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, I just think that like the world of hip hop has, I mean, I don't know, people are like, best rapper right now, Drake. And I'm like, it's not really for me. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with Drake, you know,
right?
But I just think that there are some guys in the underground like West Side Gun, Boldy James, Arm & Hammer, who you really got me on.
Nice. Okay,
yeah,
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, Larry June. I mean, Benny the Butcher, Conway the Machine.
Conway.
Yeah. Stove God Cooks. I mean, Freddie Gibbs is, you know, I mean, I would say he's one that actually made it to the forefront, but
yeah,
I think there's just like a lot of really cool, explorative hip hop that is huge in some circles, but I would say unknown in the masses.
Totally.
And I feel like the most new music that I listen to is probably within those guys. Like all of the guys that are featured on West Side Gun Records, I go, I'm like, what does their record sound like? What does their record sound like?
Yeah.
You know?
Did you like the new Pray for Paris album? Yes,
I did. There's a song called Costas on there that is like, it's a little trappy for West Side Gun, but I love it. I've been playing a lot of basketball at Bishop Park. Basketball was like the only sport that I loved thoroughly as a kid, and really started picking it back up. And I can't tell you how amazing it's been for me and my brain to just go out to Bishop Park for an hour and listen to a couple of hip hop records in my AirPods and just shoot basketball.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
So Griselda.
That's
a great answer.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad to hear you like that Arm & Hammer album, because that ended up being one of my favorites of the year. I feel like every song on that album is fantastic, and I didn't really get into them until this album. They had a different album, Harem, I think is what it's called, but it's the one with like the decapitated pigs' heads, which is fucking hard as hell.
That's the one that I listened to. I haven't actually listened to the new one.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, dude, listen to the new one. I really fell in love with it, because the other one I like, but there was I really like the first song. It's so jarring. It's just such a great intro. It just starts off like a party was just interrupted and something is about to happen. like something terrible is about to happen, which is such a cool way to start off the album. But I think The Alchemist is hard for me to listen to a bunch of. I don't know how you feel about The Alchemist. I know a lot of people love him. I think he's got a style and he crushes it. But with the new album that Arm & Hammer did, I feel like there's a little more versatility in the beats, which is why I really like it.
Yeah.
So you have to listen to that new one and let me know what you think.
Great. Yeah, I will.
What about question number 3?
Let's find out. Dream artist / producer to work with. Man.
This may have been one I asked you last time.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm trying to think of somebody current and who's really producing music right now. I feel like everybody I name is classic because I just, there are some people who tug my ears one way or the other, but I feel like I've been so exploratory in like the hip hop realm.
Yeah.
Gosh. I don't know. I feel stumped on producer.
Someone like Blake Mills would be really cool.
Blake Mills, that's a great one, actually. Blake Mills would be somebody that I would really enjoy working with. I love his solo work. I love... I think the only thing that I've knowingly listened to that he produced was, I think, the Dawes "We're All Gonna Die" record that was pretty off of the pretty outside of their zone for them, which I thought was really cool. There's a little more electronic stuff going on.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure Blake Mills produced it, but as far as his own records, I love them, and so I think it would be really cool to work with Blake Mills. There's a Jonathan Wilson is his name. I think he's like a Laurel Canyon kind of dude. He worked with he's worked with like, I think, Aaron Ray and Kevin Morby and
cool.
Yeah, and maybe some other folks as well. It's just not all those people are on my brain, but I probably Father John Misty as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I've loved what I've heard from him. Yeah. I mean, and one that Futurebirds worked with recently that I've really enjoyed was Brad Cook, who he worked on some Waxahachie stuff. He had a hand in some Kevin Morby stuff. A girl named Jess Williamson, and he worked, and he was roommates with Justin Vernon.
Whoa.
Yeah, for a while in their early days, and he
another great answer.
Yeah,
Bon Iver.
Yeah, I mean he worked with Bon Iver, I think, on his last 2 records out at Sonic Ranch. So we went out to Sonic Ranch and we worked with Brad. And,
whoa, how was that?
It was great. It was they had a little basketball court out there. I think that was what sparked the basketball thing for me.
Yeah.
But and apparently that was something that was I hear was upon Justin Vernon's request
was a basketball court.
Was to have that basketball court. And I enjoyed it. It was nice shooting basketball and then going and working in the studio. But yeah, I really love what Brad has produced on a singer-songwriter perspective, and I think that he's a wonderful guy, and I probably say that just because it feels a little closer and a little more in reach to me.
Sure.
That's not dream. I would guess that'd be more realistic. I mean, I think it'd be really cool if I worked with Brad on a future record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Brad Cook, Jonathan Wilson, and then I
Blake
said
Mills.
Blake Mills. Yeah.
You said Blake Mills, but I'm glad that you did, because that made me think about who I'd say is currently producing records.
Yeah, and crushing it.
Yeah.
I think he would be a great one simply because he's within that realm of just traditional like folk, country, rock music, but he can just make some really weird shit. He did Alabama Shake's Sound and Color album.
Yes.
And that album is like a trip, but it is grounded too. It's very human, but it feels like it's out like from outer space at the same time. And his album with Pino Palladino and Sam Gendel, that did you ever listen to that? It's called Notes with Attachments, and it's just a jazz album.
Cool.
And it is far out. It's crazy.
Cool.
I actually ended up seeing him in Atlanta, and Drew Beskin was there. Ran into him, didn't even know he was going to be there. And Drew was like, I just took mushrooms, and this is about to be the best show ever. And I was like, let's fucking go, dude. It was crazy, and I'm sure it was transcendental for him. But yeah, Blake Mills, he rules.
Oh, and Rick Rubin.
And Rick Rubin, of course. Why not?
Yeah.
I have his book over there.
Yeah.
Have you read any of it?
Yeah, I've listened to the audiobook because it's narrated by him.
That's awesome.
And each chapter ends with a little meditation bell.
Oh, that's
so
nice.
it's nice.
Yeah.
Great songwriting tip from Rick was writing for your favorite artist. So sitting down and being like, if somebody called you on the phone and said, Bruce Springsteen wants you to write him a song, and then you sit down and go, what if I wrote a song for Bruce? How would that sound? And you remove yourself from the equation.
That's good.
Yeah. So I believe that's, that might be in that book, or that might have been in an interview that I heard.
I would imagine it's probably in there somewhere, but there's so many pages.
Yes.
There's so much good stuff in there. All right, question number 4. We're in the home stretch.
Best, worst decade of music. Wow. Wow. I feel like this... Oh, God. Some decades have both sides.
Of course. Yeah.
I mean, I personally think of the 80s, when I think about what actually could encompass both the best and the worst.
Yeah, there's some pretty horrific stuff that came out of the 80s.
But I think there's, nobody was safe from what was brought by the 80s. So I would say that like it brought out the best and worst side, just influentially, because I feel like, Born in the USA was 1980 something, 82 or whatever, it's like nobody,
it's a great song.
Nobody was safe from
Yeah.
the synthesizer and the drum machine in the 80s.
It came for everyone
Because it was the new technology, and so you can hear a songwriter go through the 70s and go into the 80s, and you can hear a difference. I mean, I think about Tom Petty's Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Southern Accents. That was the album that had Don't Come Around Here.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
Yeah, and it had David A. Stewart, part of the Eurythmics. Yeah, He was the other half, the sweet dreams are made of the 80s version of that. Yeah. David A. Stewart produced that song, and so it's like,
whoa, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
It's got a weird drum machine beat to it, right? And like this like arpeggiated synth thing.
That song is so cool though.
Totally outside of anything Tom Petty ever did, but that was something the 80s touched that was really cool, So I think my answer is the 80s for both sides.
All right. Hey.
Because it brought out some bullshit, but it also brought out some magic.
That's a good answer. Usually I'm trashing the 80s and giving glory to 67 to 77 or giving glory to like the 2010s. But that's a little biased for me. But interesting. Same answer for both.
Yeah.
And if it is the same answer for both, it does have to be the 80s usually. Maybe 90s could be in the running.
Yeah. I could agree with that.
Because
like dry, like 90s, the worst snare sounds, the driest vocals, the driest lead vocals there are is in the 90s.
Yeah.
But then you also have Nirvana.
Right.
So it's like
there's so much.
There are checks and balances for each decade, but I'm leaning towards the 80s for, some people took a bad turn and some people took the technology that the 80s had to offer and created something very cool, and MTV brought some of the greatest music videos of all time, and and also to some people felt like the death of music because everyone was catering to being seen more than being heard.
Boy, if they only knew.
If they
40 years later.
If they only knew,
Appeasing an algorithm.
Yeah. But before we move on to question 5, I will say that there was something that I saw the other day, and it was this woman who I was assuming was British, and she was talking about promoting her own, she's like, promoting your own music. She's like, promoting your own music, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for me to be, like, you think we're all weirdos. We make music, we're weirdos. You think Tom York would be like on TikTok, like, did I just make the hit song of the summer?
Oh my God. Yeah.
And I'm like, and
not
it's
the
true.
Tom York reference too.
It's true. I know that like we got to promote our shows. We got to let people know that we made music.
Yeah.
But it's fucking embarrassing.
So embarrassing.
It's really embarrassing.
It hurts.
So yeah. And then you're like, well, let me just play it off like I don't really want to do this, but I have to. And I'm like, but then that feels dickish, And so you're like, what is the line I'm trying to balance here? But really, like, truly, it's embarrassing. I'm just gonna say that straight to the camera. Like it's embarrassing. So like if you see that I'm promoting my music, sometimes it just feels embarrassing, straight up. But
it hurts me more than it hurts you.
Yeah,
I promise.
But I'm doing it in hopes that you find a song that you like,
Yeah, we're doing it for you.
We're doing it for you. But it's embarrassing.
This is all for you. It's embarrassing, and we do it for you.
Okay.
All right, Spencer.
5.
Last question. Take us home.
Come on, baby.
As we approach an hour and a half here.
Crumbled.
Let's do it.
To know.
It's been weathered.
Song you wish you wrote.
I'm glad you got this one.
Oh man. Yeah. There's a song on the unreleased tapes and demos record that New West put out of Warren Zevon. His son Jordan found all of these demos in an attic, and they put them on a compilation. They put them to vinyl, and New West released and distributed it. Distributed it. And the first song on there is called Empty Hearted Town. And that song fucks me up every time. you know? It's just like, ain't life strange? Ain't it funny? Nothing matters much but love and money. Don't come out the way you planned it. The money comes first and the love comes second. And if cigarettes make the sun come up, whiskey makes the sun go down, and in between you do a lot of standing around. And you know, that's what I'm talking about.
Damn.
That's what I'm talking about. It's so
That's
plain
cool.
and sad, but there's a wink to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. That is the spirit that I love about his songwriting. And then, you know, Nick Lowe, what's so funny about peace, love, and understanding?
That song's awesome.
Yeah. those two, I mean, yeah, but both of those, like, just give me chills just thinking about, because like you just snagged everything, you know, you just snagged this universal concept and you just made it roll off the tongue so well that anybody can listen to it and be moved.
Yeah. To put something so grand, so plainly is such a hard thing to do, but it's worth striving for.
It's worth striving for. I mean, and you know what? If you write the worst version of that, if you write that really, you look back on it and you go, oh God, this is cheesy as hell. Only person that has to hear it is you.
True.
You know? So if you try to strive for writing what's so funny about peace, love, and understanding in an overstimulating and seemingly perpetually sad world, you know, if you try to write that anthem and it turns out just really damn cheesy, then just keep that in your journal and don't let anybody know that you ever wrote it.
Yeah. And glean some inspiration from that, make it into something else later.
Yeah. And write the less cheesy version of it after.
Yeah. Show people that one. Promote that one.
And then did I just write the hit of the summer on your TikTok?
Yeah. Oh, God. Now I need to go make a TikTok. All right, Spencer. We pushed about an hour and a half on this podcast. Thank you for coming in. I knew I would too. And yeah, I'm excited to kick off 2024 with this episode. Everybody needs to go check out Desperate Man, Misty Eyes, She Doesn't Know She Does It, God Grant Me a Parking Space, all those songs, everything you've done before that.
Yeah. And Joke of Life, The Joke of Life will be out on Strolling Bones Records May the 17th, and I have a few more singles in store.
May 17th. That's right. A couple more singles coming up. We'll have you back on the pod for the album promotion. Spencer, thank you again for coming on, man. It's been a blast.
Yeah. Thank you, Parker.
Thank you again for tuning into the newest episode of On That Note with Parker Whirling. Remember, not only can you listen to the episodes on Apple Podcast and Spotify, but you can also watch the episodes on my YouTube channel, which is linked in the description below. And on that note, I'll see you guys next time.